You are listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy and Shelagh Maycheck.
Hi everyone, welcome to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with your hosts, myself, Kristy, and Shelagh Maycheck.
Hello.
Today, Spilling the Tea with us is amazing property manager Kyle Grant and Kristy's close friend and old tenant, Eliza.
Hi.
All right. So guys, we're going to talk about rental properties today. There's so many rental properties around, especially in Langley and Surrey. Everything from one-bed condos to houses with 4 kitchens. It's a lot. And there's no shortage of people looking to rent, and prices go up accordingly every single year. Supply and demand. Price-wise, legislated rental increase guidelines come out once a year. And this pretty much signifies the amount that a landlord can increase the rent, and it's regulated by the government. So we don't quite have like rent control like you can see in New York. Maybe that's coming down the line. I don't know. There's a lot of talk these days.
Yeah.
But at the time of this recording, there is no such thing as rent control, just the couple percents that we get every year. So this amount usually is updated in August and September. There's no real date. It's my understanding, Kyle, you were telling me that last year, which was 2022, it came out a little bit late. Yeah, okay. So it tells the public, it sets the tone for how much one's allowed to increase, and a lot of people go by this because they have rental properties, including myself. I'm of the opinion that you maybe charge a little bit less, and you get a really good quality renter. Okay, rather than doing the maximum and having, a few people that can afford it, you want to go a little bit under and get a wider selection of people to choose from. But not everyone does it like that. And nothing quite sours a relationship between a tenant and a landlord like selling the property while the tenant's living inside.
I can see that.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate. Every one of my tenants have been absolutely amazing. I've been so lucky. And Eliza here, she is an extremely close friend of mine, and I can't imagine my life without her. That's how close we got. We didn't even lock the door in between the units because, I'd have her up for coffee.
Yeah.
And I missed that.
Yeah.
So
No stranger danger.
No stranger danger there.
Yeah.
As a realtor, we run into rental properties all the time. We run into tenants all the time because people do have to buy and sell properties while people are living in them, unfortunately. And generally, our interactions are pretty good, but sometimes they can also be very hard, and that's what we're going to be discussing today. Before we get into all that tea spilling, Shelagh, have you rented before?
Yeah, I've actually rented a few different places. One of them being what we call forest housing in the Arctic, which was work-provided housing for my husband's job up there. Rented a basement in Kelowna and a basement suite here in Langley.
All right. And would you ever consider renting again? Now that you've done it once, would you do it again?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. In our first home down here, we had a basement suite, and we ended up renting to someone who we knew through a work grapevine.
Nice.
Excellent tenants. Would definitely have them again.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I've got a story to share with you guys before we kind of get into it. And Kyle, you're going to look at me with disapproving eyes, I'm sure. So we had a situation where we had a subject removal, and it was on the last day of the month. And we also had to have notice served to the tenant to make sure that they got out. So I've got a very small window of time. And we actually had subject removal done at about 5 o'clock that day. And so we needed notice to be delivered to the tenant to say, hey, you got to get out. So it's 5 o'clock. I'm running out of time because by midnight, right? So I contact the property manager expecting that they've been notified because the property did have a property manager. And they said, I'm in Chilliwack. I'm not driving out to do that. Sorry. Which is completely understandable.
We're like, okay, the property was over here closer to Langley.
Right. So now we would be in breach if we weren't able to serve this notice, and we wouldn't be able to evict on time, and it would have been like a whole thing. And I guess it is evicting, but it is notice to occupy because the new people were going to come in and take possession. And that, it happens. So getting this notice from the property manager, I was like, okay, so you're not going to come. What am I going to do? And she goes, I'll walk you through the paperwork. Get over there.
Walk me through, please.
Yes. And I'm on the phone to my managing broker, and I'm like, I put myself in a pickle because I really did. And I was like sweating. I called Sheila, and it's the only time I've ever demanded that she work. I'm like, I'm coming to get you. Get in the car now.
Yeah,
and
I'm
she's
pulling
like,
up.
She's like, okay. And I'm like, we got to go serve notice to these tenants right now. These tenants, very lovely people, a little rough around the edges, but they were very nice. So we get into this townhouse complex and we park, and I'm flying out of the car. Like, I'm shocked I even put it into park and had my brake on, and I go flying out the side door, and Sheila, I'm like leaving her in the window. I'm like, Sheila, because I needed a witness, right? So I'm like, Sheila, come on, let's go. And I'm like, running down the walkway, and thankfully I saw them outside, because if they had left, like, what were my options? I would have had to
Because at that point, had we left it on the door, correct me if I'm wrong, but it wouldn't have been deemed notice until 3 days later.
Yeah, 100%.
That's why there was such a critical time crunch to meet these people while they were there.
I had hours and I was running out of daylight. It was it was bad.
You were lucky that they were home.
I was so lucky, and they were outside. So they didn't even have to like pretend they weren't home or anything. Yeah. So I ended up getting there, and I had the papers, and I was like, guys, I said, the property manager couldn't be here, but I'm here to let you know that the new owners are going to be taking possession in 60 days. It is a full 60 days. And of course the mom was there, and she's like, I know my rights. I know my rights. And I was like, okay, I understand. I'm not the bad guy here. This is legislation. Write your MLA if you don't like I'm trying to just, write the residential tenancy branch. She goes, you can't do this. And I'm like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just the messenger. So I go to give her the piece of paper. So I literally hold out my hand, and I've got the piece of paper on the other end of it. And she looks at her daughter. She's like, don't take that. Don't take that. And I'm like, okay. So I just put it down on the ground. I took a photo of it and the address and the person with a timestamp, just so that we all knew what was going to happen. But oh my goodness. And they ended up moving. There wasn't an issue. It was just the initial shock of being like, surprise, you have to get out, which
didn't expect it.
They should have, because we had those conversations, but
they knew the property was listed. They accommodated showings for us.
Yes.
They knew there was an accepted offer. Home inspection had been done, everything. So it was something that was coming.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was a lot of emotional kind of confrontation, but at the end of the day,
Which Sheila doesn't love.
No, Sheila does not love. So I needed her there to witness it all go down. But Kyle, I'm sure that story completely makes you cringe a little, doesn't it?
It definitely could have been done a little bit better. Yeah, and you were absolutely extremely lucky that they were home, because that could have gone wrong for you in so many ways.
I feel like the real estate god threw me a bone that day.
They really did.
That's all I'm thinking in my head is how lucky you were that they were home, because otherwise you would have been delaying a month.
Yeah, it would have been horrible.
Yeah.
So Kyle, let's get into you. How long have you been a property manager for?
I have been a property manager now for 3 years, full-time for 2.
Awesome.
Excellent.
And why property management and not real estate trading services?
Well, Kristy, I hate myself. Aside from that, my skills shine through a little bit better. I'm all about long-term relationships, and I've been a renter before, and I've seen the good and bad side of both of it. So I feel I'm able to provide better service for both people there, even though you don't have agency with the tenant. It still helps that things can go smoother for everybody involved.
Right. Okay. So you've been there. You want to see it done better. You want to put good things out into the world.
Yeah.
I love that. What's your favorite part of property management?
Actually, after this, I'm going to go show a bunch of tenants. I'll be meeting about 15 people today, and some will be great, some won't. And it's going through the measures of trying to protect our client while giving these people a great home. We've got a great unit that's pet friendly, and the rent's a little bit cheaper. So
Very cool. That's awesome.
Somebody's going to get a good home.
You're like a little property matchmaker.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
Like a blind date, how many people... Like a blind date, how many people who say they're going to come don't end up actually coming?
80%.
80%. Wow.
Yep.
So guys, if you're looking for a rental, you stand a good chance if you show up.
It's the first step.
Wow. That's
wild.
surprising considering just, the rental market right now. How many people are looking for homes and there's not a lot out there.
It's a high percentage. I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Well, we had one house last summer. It was a development property. The tenants are still there. 4-bedroom detached house. We gave it for $2,500 on an acreage because it's a development property. We had 180 inquiries in 2 days. We invited 130 people to come see it, and 5 showed up.
Okay.
Whoa, that sucks.
And we spent the time answering the inquiries.
Yes.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's a lot of work for,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you just have to place one family, but at the end of the day, you're contacting 150 people or so.
Yeah.
Copy and paste.
Okay, templated emails. Kyle's got it dialed in.
Yeah.
What's the best and most important way you help your clients?
Properly screening tenants and setting expectations from the get-go.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. I wasn't sure about property managers. In my head, I'm like, well, can't people just do that by themselves? But then I've kind of seen a few things. It's like, I'm jaded now. So I always tell everyone, hire a property manager. I forward on Kyle's information. If I get my other properties up and running and rent them out, Kyle will be my first call because he does everything that we would want somebody to do in that position. So I ended up meeting Eliza because she was actually my tenant. And it was a mutual relationship, a friendship that brought us together. And I didn't know her at all. And I was so excited when I met her because, it's like a two-way interview. I'm like, oh my God, I hope she picks here. And we were probably
I'm sitting there thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
So
little did they know we were destined to be together.
Yeah.
Eliza, how long were you a tenant for?
almost 5 years. 5 years.
Oh man, we miss her every day.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna throw that out there.
Yeah.
How many places have you rented? Because it wasn't. I don't think it was. I wasn't your
No.
first, right?
No, I think I've done 3 before we bought our home.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you ever have that stranger danger kind of, other than me, of course, but again, loose connection? Your first 2 rentals, did you know the people you were renting from, or was it like total stranger?
The very first property that I moved into was total stranger. It was a couple, and it was like a very new building. It was an apartment. It was really nice. Rent was good. We had a good experience there. We just had to leave because the couple had to sell because they were splitting up.
Oh, yeah. Not all
Yeah.
sales are happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tune into one of our other episodes.
Yeah. Yeah, we got lots of content on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so part of this is coming up with these scenarios that we're going to put in front of you. I want you to pretend that you didn't have this amazing time with me. Okay, pretend it's somebody else that is your landlord. Okay, so you're a tenant. You got the tenant mindset. You're a tenant of a home up for sale, kind of like the one that you were in before.
Mm-hmm.
But say they never told you it was going up for sale until a sign's installed out on the front yard, because this is how some tenants find out, which is really unfortunate, and showings are going to be booked inside your suite. You don't want to move. So your friend says to you, hey girl,
Hey.
I have some advice. I've got some advice for you if you want to stay behind.
Mm-hmm.
Cook fish. Stay inside the unit during all the showings and badmouth the home when people come through. What do you do?
See, I just can't be the person who cooks the fish. I can't do it. I just can't do it. It's the
No
fish
to the
for
fish.
me. I can't do it.
Strike one.
But we actually, when I was younger and we moved into our family home, we had a situation like that. Our family bought the house, and the people that were living in there didn't want to move out, and they did put eggs in the ceiling vents and put food throughout the house. Yeah, so my parents spent, I don't even know how much time trying to figure out what the smell was, and they finally found the spoiled food.
That's the rudest.
Yeah. So it does happen.
Wow. Yeah. No, it definitely happens. The weird thing is all the scenarios I use when we're doing our interviews, they're all real life things.
Yeah.
Which is horrible.
It's like revenge smells. It's not a
Yeah,
good
it was
situation.
not fun.
Yeah.
No, not fun for any of us.
So you've heard of this happening, and you wouldn't do it because you're like, no to the fish.
No to the fish.
Would you ever do anything to like prevent that? Would you ever be like, I'm going to seek revenge?
See, for me, it's if they went through the proper channels, I don't think I would ever have that mindset. If they were being sneaky about it, I probably would go to the landlord tenancy branch and ask what options I have.
Right.
I probably, again, wouldn't do the fish, wouldn't do the rotten eggs, but like, yeah, I would find out what my options are if I'm scrambling for a place last minute to move into. That's not fair to us either, right?
Right. Okay. People got to have rights. So, Kyle, throwing it back to you. Have you had tenants that are facing a change of landlord and, things are getting a little weird?
Well, yes. When I was migrating from trading services into property management, I took a listing on a house. Can't disclose where or who, but I didn't manage it at the time. And they had these tenants in there that were did not believe the conversation about who's going to buy the property. And so during showings, we're talking they're smoking cigarettes outside. They refused to leave, wouldn't clean up. were just combative. And then we got the accepted offer, an investor that was going to keep them.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
And they didn't believe me. So they retaliated by not paying their rent.
Well, that's not a good
Now,
way.
that
That's
could
not a
be
good way
that
to
could be a
stay.
2 to 3
So-
month process for eviction.
So you told them you guys get to stay here. You don't have to move anywhere. And they said, heck no.
They said, with certain curse words, that they did not believe me.
Oh.
And I was like, well, you're not being served anything that says you have to go. And they turned around and said, well, we're just not going to pay our rent because we quote unquote have rights.
Can't imagine anyone talking to you like that. For anyone who's listening and can't see Kyle, he's very gentle looking. You know, he's very kind looking. I can't imagine someone swearing at you like that.
I've got a witness, and he was like, holy cow.
Wow.
Like, he's like, I can't believe that. And we were like leaving the property, and I was like, well, if you're not going to pay your rent, here's a notice that says like you didn't have to leave, now you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The good news is that because they stopped paying their rent, we didn't sell the house, but now I manage it. We've got some really good tenants in there.
Oh, wild.
Full circle. It came full circle.
It did go
Yeah.
full circle.
I
so
like that.
Yeah.
Have you ever surprised anyone by being like, "Oh, hey, your landlord's selling"?
it's almost always a surprise.
Oh, that sucks.
It sucks,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day, we try to get it's all about expectations.
Right.
So we try to get as much heads up, and we tell our landlords that like right now with the last year, the market's been interesting.
Right.
So we're taking on a lot of properties that the landlords have 3 to 5 year time horizons. Could it be in year 2? Could it be in year 5? We always just say try to give us 3-4 months notice. If we have the tenant in there where they've paid their rent consistently on time and they've otherwise been great tenants, we will find them something else in our book.
Oh, that's great.
Wonderful.
That's so nice. See, these are things that you never think a property manager will do.
Yeah.
Because you think, okay, they're just going to collect their paycheck every month after it's in there.
I'm on my
but-
own.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it saves us the work. I mean, we've got a pre-vetted tenant, so it's
Right.
a win-win.
Yeah.
And oftentimes we can even move the tenant before the place goes up for sale if the landlord gives them their compensation.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the house is easier to sell because it's vacant.
Okay. I feel like it all is boiling down to communication.
Expectations, communication.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of weird how everything kind of comes back to that all the time.
Almost as if it's important.
Now, Eliza, you used to be you are a 911 dispatcher. I'm saying used to because Eliza has a beautiful little girl at home, and it's very nice of her to come out and give us her time.
We're stealing you.
We are stealing her for an hour here.
Came for the tea.
Yeah. she came for the tea.
Yeah.
So you are a 911 dispatcher, and you've been on the receiving end of many calls between landlord-tenant disputes.
Yeah.
My husband was a cop on the road for a long time, and he said, yeah, in certain areas, this is all they go to.
Yeah.
Right? Which isn't bad. Like, if that's the only crime around and that's a majority of the calls, okay.
Yeah.
But it should get a little tiring, I imagine.
Yeah.
So how many landlord-tenant disputes have you heard, or can you give us some insight on what that looks like?
It's a huge chunk of the type of calls that we have coming in. It's that people don't know their rights, and then they assume that law enforcement can come and just kind of make their own decisions and do whatever they want, and that's not the case. There's disputes over laundry day, whose turn it is to use the dryer.
Oh, great.
Yeah,
wow.
and then disputes of a landlord entering the suite without giving notice, and then there's the
Wow.
full out brawls. They're throwing my stuff out onto the road. It's just a huge spectrum.
And you're like, that's a civil matter.
Yeah.
Contact your lawyer.
And a lot of people don't realize a lot of it is civil, and a lot of it they have to contact the landlord tenancy branch because they need to go through the proper channels, documentation, stuff like that.
Yeah, I imagine part of you probably feels a little bit of empathy on behalf of
Yeah.
whoever's being offended on.
Yeah.
And that sucks because like we don't like to hear that. We try to have nice communities, and it's kind of a place of tripping on my tongue a little bit. A waste of police resources
Yeah.
to send people to things that could be ultimately
Resolved without that.
Yeah.
resolved and
Yeah.
and prevented. I feel.
Yeah.
Hire Kyle. No, I just
We have tenants that only rent from us because we're professionally managed.
right.
Oh,
Okay.
wicked.
Because they don't want that dispute or their laundry to be thrown in the street.
Right, because you're kind of
That
protecting
would
both
put a
sides.
damper on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a huge chunk of it is the tenants aren't vetted.
Yep.
And then
Oh,
they have
yeah.
someone moving in and they find out that they're someone that's
And then it's a problem.
you don't want living in your basement suite.
Yeah.
And
Right.
it's
And
a
the
huge
tenants don't
problem.
vet their landlords.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
That's fair.
Both
Yeah.
ways because
If-
they're so desperate to get a place that they'll
Yeah.
rent from anybody.
And they don't realize. Yeah.
Okay, Kyle, have you ever had a landlord pressure you to like get tenants to do certain things that they're not really expected to do?
Yep. Absolutely. Everything from we took over a property where lawn maintenance was in the contract. Landlord decided he didn't want to pay for it anymore.
Oh.
And we just simply had to say, well, here's the consequences if you go through this. You're going to have to decrease their rent by the amount of the lawn care if they agree to it. If not, then you're in breach. And just setting expectations like that. I've had landlords that want, right now with the interest rates being what they are, we're getting landlords that want us to find ways to remove tenants so they can increase the rent.
Oh.
And it's the conversation boils down to, look, we can't do that. And
Yeah.
here's the consequence if you do. And just back to clear communication and being that middle guy, because part of our sales is protection for everybody involved.
Right.
You know, if we can save the landlord a lawsuit by doing something stupid, well, great.
Yeah. Okay. So, interesting. Yeah, because integrity comes down at the end of the day, and you understand. Okay, everything's getting more expensive. So you're like you feel for the landlord a little bit with regards to the fact that everything is increasing, right? But at the same time, you can't just pass that down the line so far that it becomes unfair to people. It's unethical. So that's really good, and that's probably part of your initial conversations, right? People know not to ask you to kind of do that kind of stuff, and if they do, you drop the hammer. That's awesome. And then so by knowing you and by being involved with you, you're able to place tenants into better properties. And do you ever do any kind of compensation for them to kind of get them out the door sooner if needed, or if they were open to that?
It's always a conversation that can be had, and it's
Okay.
actually a good part of this, of like if you went to list a house that I had a tenant in. We can sit them down and the conversation is, look, this is happening.
Right.
It's not, you can't stop this process because it's not my choice. It's not your choice. And usually it's not even the landlord's choice. It's a business, right?
It's not if, it's when.
Exactly. So it's look, I can, I'll talk to the landlord. I have this other unit we can move you to, and we'll get you, you know, if you want to skip the whole process of having people come into your suite, we can find you something else.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's going to be two buyers. One is going to be an investor who'll keep you as a tenant if you make a good impression. The other is going to be the person who doesn't care who you are.
Right.
And we'll see a bad tenant as the opportunity to actually get a lower price on the property. So you'll end up with a predatory landlord.
Right.
Yeah.
There are so many things that we don't have to think about, but we should. And which is why there is definitely space for property managers. A lot of people think, yeah, I'm going to do it myself, but they don't think about, well, what happens at the end? What happens if I have to sell? What happens if something happens? And it's just
The 3 a.m. phone calls.
Yes, the 3 a.m. phone calls. I
The
know.
toilet
you get
exploded.
them. Yes, I know you get a lot of that.
It's always at 3 a.m.
It's always plumbing related.
Or somebody's hamster escaped.
Oh,
Oh.
Just had that.
no.
5 a.m.
No.
There's a rodent in my closet. You need to come have a look. And I was like, where's your hamster? She's like, oh, it's not in its crate. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, we found the rodent.
Yeah. Did you find Hammy? Yeah. Be careful. Turn the lights on.
Yeah.
Okay, so Eliza, have you ever, your last sale process, were you asked to leave sooner than you should have been asked? Like, did they give you the full 60 days when that house was sold? Like, can you imagine what it would be like to be told, hey, you only got 2 weeks to get out? Did that happen to you at any time?
No, they gave us the full amount of time.
It was all done above.
It was done properly.
Oh, I love that. I love
yeah,
that
I had
so
a
much.
really good experience considering what it was.
That's excellent. So what if you were told to get out sooner than you had to? Would you just stay? Would you contact the landlord tenant? Like, what would you do?
I think I would contact landlord tenancy branch. I would just feel so awkward staying in the house, like knowing that showings are happening and that they need to move on.
And they
out
want
of
you
there.
out.
Yeah, I'm not wanted. So
not
I think
wanted.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think I would just contact landlord tenancy branch to start looking for somewhere else to rent right away.
Yeah.
Okay, because Sheila, you have a family member that was asked to.
Yeah, and for this person, it was in Alberta, so they've got some different rental rules there, but essentially it boiled down to him and his roommate got a call saying, we need you out in 2 weeks because we're going to move back into the basement because the owners lived upstairs. And he's like, there's no way I'm going to be able to find a place like that, and you can't do that. And they found out it was to get another tenant in. That's why the time crunch, because the owners upstairs had already agreed to a date for a new tenant before telling these guys.
Kind of gutsy.
Yeah.
Wow.
Really gutsy. So I was incredibly irate on his behalf. Nothing I can do from here, but it's just that kind of type of thing
It happens.
it happens. Yeah.
What did he do?
He's moved in with a friend right now temporarily. He still does not have a new place. And that was
And he
months
got
ago.
out?
Yeah, he left. Because at that point they were threatening to withhold deposits and make everything kind of a really bad process for them. And they just decided to wash their hands of it and get out.
It's just easier to leave sometimes.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah.
That all being said, if you're a tenant watching this, the RTB information officers are excellent resources.
Oh, good to know.
Absolutely fantastic.
Okay. See, this is why Kyle is here. Kyle, you're awesome.
Yeah.
I when I moved into the house I was purchasing, there was a tenant in the basement, and I go back over in my head. I don't think we gave proper notice. I don't even think we gave any notice. I think it was that
You said we're moving in tomorrow, get out?
no, we didn't move in for, it was 60 days. I don't remember giving notice. I don't even think we did, but we were told that they were already leaving. But I didn't have any documentation. The lady was a hoarder. I was nervous. When we went downstairs to view this property, I didn't even know where the staircase was. I didn't know where anything, like there was no smoke detectors. Like it was just like a big fire risk waiting to happen. When she moved out, actually the walls were in better condition than the upstairs because all of her stuff protected it. And the guy who owned the house, he was trying to rent rooms at that time. He ran into some, self-induced financial difficulty. So it was kind of a situation where it could have gone very sideways, but we were very fortunate that person, said they were going to move, and they did. So we got really lucky, I think. But going back in my head now, I sit there and I'm like, man, they didn't really have to go. So I dodged a major bullet there. Kyle, do you get a lot of bad landlords, or is it's mostly good landlords and you just run into a few that make the good tea spilling stories? Or
Oh, yeah, most are good.
Okay.
Most that I deal with anyways. I do help consult for the odd tenant. That being said, most are good, but some landlords, sorry, I'm tripping over myself here trying to verbalize this.
You're good.
The people that shouldn't be landlords oftentimes are two types of people. People that are jerks and people that are too nice.
Oh.
Because you...
Me.
because...
That might be me. No, I'm just kidding.
Because...
Which one's which? Yeah.
Because if you're too nice,
Right.
You don't set those expectations, and when boundaries are pushed, you don't push back.
Right.
Right at the end of the day, they have to be rigid within reason.
Yeah.
And once you let that slip, it can become.
You kind of set a precedent for, you don't really have to
give
do
an
that.
inch.
And then tenant leaves, and you got a $500 junk removal bill, or damage or excess wear and tear.
Yeah.
Or it's the start of a cycle that ends up with eviction.
Yeah. I never got a damage deposit from them. They were so nice. I didn't need it.
I've seen that.
Oh, no.
Yep.
That's wild.
Yep.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good to know. Man, the things that you learn. That's really good. Okay, so Kyle, have you ever represented a tenant in in a residential tenancy dispute? Like, has it ever gone that far that you had to represent a tenant and help them out?
I have never attended an RTB hearing on behalf of a tenant.
Okay.
Because if I'm not party to it, like if I'm not the one serving the documentation and I'm not directly innately involved here, I don't have enough information to go before an arbitrator and plead a case.
Right.
What I have done is I've consulted for tenants, and I'm helping two out right now, who have landlords that are, one guy bought a house and it was never for sale. The landlord died. Somebody bought the house off the estate, sent a registered letter with a unsigned mutual agreement to end tenancy to the tenants that says you have 2 months to get out. It's not a very mutual agreement to end tenancy.
Yeah,
if it's
I feel
not
like
signed.
they're missing the mutual part of that.
But because they
Together.
sent it on threatening legal letterhead, so we had to respond with a very nicely typed letter that said, this is incorrect. We know the rights. Here's the sections of the Residential Tenancy Act that you have to follow.
Right.
Here's the compensation if you don't. And hopefully by the next episode, I'll have an update for you on that. But safe to say these tenants aren't going anywhere till they want to.
Right.
Yeah.
Because now this has been attempted. So even if they are served something, the landlord has compromised their ability to evict for any other reason in the future because it's going to cast doubt on their integrity.
You done
Okay.
messed up.
Yeah.
Okay, I love it. So by the time that this episode airs, because we do shoot them in advance, what we'll do is if we do have a follow-up to that story, we can post it underneath anywhere that we've
Perfect.
In the
put
comment.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that if anyone wants to know like what happened, you're going to be able to put everyone's mind at ease.
Yeah.
So just wrapping up today, guys, always brush up on the Residential Tenancy Act. Okay, if you're a landlord or you're a tenant, know your rights. Hire a property manager if you want a stress-free or mostly stress-free. Free. Today is something. If you want a stress-free experience. The fee that they charge, it's not a lot, and it is completely worth it. Because if you don't have it, the repercussions could be so much more. You know, it's just like saying plumbers aren't expensive, water leaks are expensive. It's like that for a property manager. Be kind to one another. If you're a tenant, understand that you are in somebody else's home. Landlords, you have people living in your spaces. This is a place that they have tried to make home, and that should not be taken lightly. We have realtors have ensured that we treat our tenants like gold whenever we're listing a property with tenants inside, to the point where a lot of them use us as realtors afterwards when it is time for them or their family members to purchase, because we do really want to respect those relationships. We want to make sure that they know that we get that it's not a kind process necessarily to sell a home while people are inside.
Yeah.
So that's all the tea spilling today, folks. We hope you learned something, and we look forward to next time. Eliza, Kyle, thank you so much. Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Spilling the Tea, a real estate podcast with Kristy Macero and Shelagh Maycheck.